Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM. AM 630. WMAL.
Good morning. It is 7:07 on the Morning Majority. You're listening to Brian Wilson. Brian Neiman filling in for Mary Catherine Ham is our good friend Tori Clark. Good to have you, Tori.
Lovely to be here.
Always a pleasure to see Tori early in the morning. So bright and cheery. I don't know how you do it.
Because it's such a short commute. It's my 2-minute drive. You guys have to schlep an hour and a half, even at 3 in the morning. I just bop around the corner.
That means we should be more awake when we get here. We should be more cheery than we are.
We are joined on the phone right now by Michael Brown, member of the D.C. City Council. And Michael, we appreciate you joining. Councilman, thanks for being on the phone with us. We want to talk to you about the Occupy D.C. thing right off the bat. Has the City Council and the mayor, have they pretty much decided just to leave these folks alone?
Well, first, good morning. How are you guys today?
Good.
Great. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I think so. I mean, we have we had a press conference about statehood on the City Hall steps, which is right across the street from where the Occupy D.C. folks are, and I actually acknowledged them in my speech. And so the answer is absolutely yes, as long as they clearly no one wants a health hazard, and two, that is a gathering place for quite a few organizations around the, as you can imagine, that come into the city. So as long as they don't take up all the space so other folks are able to use that space as a gathering place, from our standpoint, it's fine, and they have every right, their First Amendment right, to protest what's going on in our government.
And of course, everybody has the right to address their government and to speak their mind. But I can't recall a time, though, can you, where a group has been given sort of an open-ended permit?
Well, again, as long as they don't take over the whole space so other folks are able to use it. And other folks have been able to use it. Other permits are being granted. So from that standpoint, and as you know, if you've ever been down to Freedom Plaza, it's a pretty big space. So, again, as long as they don't take up the whole thing, and this is just my opinion, as long as they don't take up the whole thing, from my standpoint, it's fine.
I don't think
and obviously, and different from other cities, we haven't had any kind of chaos or ruckus or any kind of issue where the police have had to really get involved and cause any kind of confusion. And again, I have to come back as long as there's no health hazard, and I'm sure the Department of Health is monitoring the situation. If something has to be done, it'll be done.
Well, there was that one incident where they're blocking the entrance to a convention, and there were some people in the street, and the car and pedestrians hit. So there was at least one significant incident so far with this.
Well, we did that too. We sat in the middle of Constitution Avenue and got arrested for statehood. So some things you have to do to get attention for a particular cause, and sometimes there are unintended consequences, and hopefully the victims are okay.
Oh yeah, unintended consequences of hitting people in cars. I mean, that's pretty significant. I mean, that's nothing.
Oh no, absolutely significant. But I'm talking about compared to what's happening in other cities with Occupy, with other occupiers, where the police have had major confrontation. We've had major arrests, major injuries. We've been fortunate not to have that here.
I don't think anybody really cares if they're down there, if they're keeping to themselves and they're not causing a problem for police or for businesses. But we do hear a lot of how much is this costing the city? Can you quantify how much this is costing the city? Because the police are around there on a regular basis. Reports are that some of the stimulus money went to reseeding grass and putting up new trash cans and things like that that have been damaged. Can you quantify how much this is costing the city?
No, I have no idea. Certainly could look into it, and have no idea if that's accurate or not about stimulus dollars going to replace grass or not. I have no idea about that either.
All right. There was a report that was $437,000 went to new grass and curbs and things like that at McPherson Square, I believe.
Do you know if that was already previously scheduled?
Well, no, it was.
Keep in mind, McPherson Square is also a big gathering place for a lot of protesters, not just Occupy D.C. folks. Even sometimes when we have our statehood rallies, we start at McPherson Square. So I don't think that's anything really to look into and sort of do some deep analysis on.
No, what I'm saying is it was done, it was paid for, and then some people say that, hey, the grass is now damaged because people are basically living in the square.
I understand what you're saying, but understand what I'm saying. We have many gathering points in the city. McPherson Square is one of them. I wouldn't blame it just on one group.
Okay. Go ahead, Tori.
I was going to ask, Councilman, you are familiar with people who protest for specific reasons. And one of the frustrations I have with some of the Occupy D.C., Occupy New York groups is I'm never quite sure exactly what they want. What do you think, the folks who are doing Occupy D.C., what do you think they want? What would make them happy? What would make them say, okay, we've succeeded here and we can go home now?
Well, first of all, I am not a spokesperson for Occupy D.C.
Right.
I do not have their talking points in front of me. But my understanding is they're protesting on several different fronts. They're protesting on how their government has failed them. I hear some folks protesting about what student loans they have. I hear some folks protesting how the banks were bailed out. I hear some folks protesting about how government is not transparent enough. I don't think there's one issue. I think there's several issues that people are frustrated with, and I think that's okay too. I don't know if there's necessarily a definition of what a real protest is, whether you have to have one issue or you can have several. So I understand your question, but I don't think it should be quantified with whether they have one main issue or several.
Councilman Brown, I want to ask you about something that's been in the news of late. I think it's safe to ask you because I think I get the answer that I'm expecting here. You probably have a current tag on your car, don't you?
A current tag?
Yeah, a plate. You've got a current plate that's up to speed and you're registered, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's another Brown who serves on the council, happens to be the council chair, apparently driving around town for some time now with no license plates on his car, and nothing has been done about it. And it would probably be just, okay, well, an oversight or something happened to the tag. We could probably all agree on that, except that there had been a policy until just recently of people being arrested for not having their license plates up to date and current.
I know we took that. We repealed that. I'm not aware of the chairman's car registration.
Well, it's been all over the news. I mean, NBC4 has pictures of it, the whole 9 yards, where he just doesn't have a plate on his Prius.
Well, I've not seen those stories.
Well, can you understand why that would irritate people?
Sure, but I think in the big scheme of things, I think it would irritate people more if their cousin didn't have a job or their uncle didn't have a job or if folks were getting moved out of the city when the economy is going to get better. I'm not suggesting that people don't get irritated by that, but I think there are larger issues that people are getting irritated about relative to what's going on with our economy and our job market here.
I'm not leveling this charge at you individually, but there have been a lot of questions about sort of, ethics matters of some council members. You had to have a big meeting recently where you talked about how you're going to approach issues that have an ethical tint to them, and then you have the council chair driving around town without a license plate. I mean, it doesn't inspire a great deal of confidence in our city government.
Well, I certainly can't disagree with your opinion. It's your opinion, but I think if you look what's going on around our country relative to a lot of legislative bodies, including the one on Capitol Hill, which has an approval rating of, I think, somewhere in the 9 or 10 or 11%. I think people are just angry at a lot of things, and justifiably so. As I just mentioned, the economy is not moving as quickly as people would like. The job market is awful. And I think there are a lot, we're still in a couple of wars. We have men and women still fighting for us and getting injured and dying. So I think that people are angry at a variety of things, and you point that anger towards your elected officials. That's what we signed up for. I don't think anybody's making excuses for it, but I think there's a reason for that. But I don't think it's just the D.C. Council. I think you can go around the country and find issues everywhere. The question is, once those issues are dealt with, does the particular legislative body continue to move forward doing the business for the city? And from our standpoint, our population is growing. People are climbing all over themselves to live here in the District of Columbia. We have some of the best restaurants in America, some of the greatest nightlife. Our schools are improving. So think something's doing right. Now, clearly, we're not perfect. We still have to do better in other areas, but our city's moving forward in the right direction. Relative to the economy, I'd rather be in Washington, D.C. than anywhere else in America.
Councilman Brown, good to have you on the program. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot.